Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
Two Doomed Men podcast, the greatest, ready? The greatest podcast in the history of the country, perhaps even the world by far. I don't think anyone comes close.
No, Trump, no one does come close. Welcome back, Doom Nation. You were listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. Sorry for the little hiatus. Skaggs and I took a nice little summer vacation, but we are back. How you doing, buddy? What's on today's docket?
I'm almost fully recovered, man. When the captain and I mean, you guys, he said we're on a vacation, but vacations for us are more work than actual work for the most part.
People do less works on deployments to Iraq than when we go away.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I'm almost back to 100%. Boy, this last one was exhausting. Which, by the way, if you want to check out any of that, we of course we worked while we were out there a little bit. Or maybe not us, but our buddy Trill Boy. You might remember him from the Last Slice podcast. We do a lot of stuff with him and Chris. He did a couple live streams while we were out there in Montauk, Long Island, and you could go to see those on his Twitch channel at TrillBoy15.
And I sounded like RFK Jr. because I lost my voice on the first night.
Yeah, there was one night where Captain literally could not be heard. He was speaking and like there was no sound coming.
There was no voice, nothing.
And I just started calling him RFK Jr.
Yeah.
So tonight I thought we'd come back and get into a little nuance since we haven't been around in a while. There's so much stuff that happened in the past 2 weeks while we were gone. But I thought we would pick the Twitter space conversation between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And it really was just that, Cap. Like
it was a nice conversation.
It was a conversation. It wasn't per se an interview. I know Elon kind of said that right out of the gate that he just wanted to have a conversation, not a combative style interview like you mostly hear. I thought it was just interesting in general because we almost never hear a conversation from Donald Trump.
Right.
He's always in an interview format. Hasn't really gone on like Rogan yet and dove into that sort of style of conversation like maybe we would do. Elon Musk isn't the best at it.
He's
one of the smartest people in the world, but he's not the best conversationalist.
And there was that weird Trump lisp, which was weird as well.
I don't think that was him, though.
I don't know.
They're gonna make a big deal of it, right?
I mean,
probably the mic he was using.
I was like, I don't know. You guys are making fun of his lisp, but did you actually hear what he had to say? What I genuinely enjoyed about it is, when we deal with Kamala and we deal with Joe Biden, there's a lot to make fun of. Joe Biden gets out there and he has no idea which way is up. And Kamala gets out there and she can't be burdened by what has been and starts laughing. And it gives us plenty of content and plenty of material. But one thing I like now that we're in the election cycle, the nuance of policy. And we actually got to dive in for more than 0.3 seconds of reading a headline into policy.
Yeah, we did. Maybe before we dive into that, because what we're going to do is we're going to play back some of the conversation. Captain and I listened to almost all of it. I didn't finish the entire thing.
I finished it today.
90% of it.
Yeah.
And then we wrote down timestamps of topics and things we thought were interesting. We're going to play them back. Then Captain and I will comment, and then we'll wrap up the tweets of the week and all that stuff. Maybe we'll comment a little bit on Kamala Harris. But before we get into that, like I said before, we were out on vacation in Montauk and the Hamptons this past week. And I spotted this. I tweeted this. I also spotted this while I was out in East Hampton, New York. It was like a coffee or the Monogram shop. Sorry if I'm shouting you out there in East Hampton. And they had these interesting signs on the posted on the window there. So it caught my eye, of course. And it says cup count 2024. Cups sold in store today. And it has some statistics underneath, and it says Trump 79, Harris 277. So this immediately caught my eye. I'm like, oh, they're like writing, or they have cups for each candidate, and then they're just counting at the end of the day how many they sold based on, the two candidates, and it's in a way. So I saw it as like a way to collect a data point on what's real or not, right? So we could see at least in the demographic of East Hampton. Which
is a fairy tale land if you don't know what it is.
I'm sure most people know is an extremely affluent white neighborhood in Long Island, maybe one of the richest places in the entire country. Overwhelmingly is supporting Kamala Harris. I think there's some information there that is maybe not surprising for people like me and you, but maybe is surprising for some other folks around the world. So, she trounces him in almost every day. On August 3rd, she sold 385 cups. Trump sold 91. Trump did beat her on the 4th, 291 to 262, 163 to 150. There wasn't. Let's see, did I post it? There was an interesting one.
I think there was a difference of about 1,500 in Kamala's favor.
Yeah, there was a difference of a lot. I don't know if all these are here, but they did have up on the wall some of them that were out there when Biden was still running and Trump was winning. When Biden was the cup candidate, I guess, at the store. He was handily winning. I think they posted up the total also. He won the grand total, and there was a couple of days of him as the candidate straight up on individual days. So that should tell you something there.
Yeah,
I think that points back to what I was saying before a couple of weeks ago when Kamala got installed as the candidate, and everyone's like, oh, she's the worst candidate ever. This isn't going to work or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. They're going to run a bunch of really good videos and things like that, and they're going to convince people that she is a good candidate. And I think there is at least one data point I have there that proves that she actually does have a little bit of support. Now, that's a really unique demographic area, East Hampton.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of money. Let's put it that way, right? So there's a lot of power there. So
we'll put it this way. Inflation,
Kamala Harris.
Inflation could get way worse. The people in East Hampton would not care. Not care.
And it is way worse out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
We bought on Saturday on one of the streams that we were on. I know I bought 2 Modelos at Rushmeyer's out in Montauk. It cost me $38 after a change. That doesn't include the tip or anything. So basically $40 for 2 beers.
I think your cousin bought like 2-3 rounds and it came out to like $300 or something like that.
Insane.
In a single night.
Don't check your bank account. You're on a trip with the Legion of Doom. All right, so let's dive into the space between Trump and Elon. Anything you want to say to start off, Cap, before I play the first part, which will be about immigration policies and Kamala Harris?
Let's get into it. If you guys haven't seen it, I know a lot of people were deterred when it was live. There was some type of attack.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And Skaggs, you put it the best in the group chat to me, you and Garrett, where it behooves the administration to make sure that this isn't listened or there's something wrong with it.
Couldn't be allowed to go off without it.
Exactly.
That was the first thing I thought of as soon as I saw it. There was a massive DDoS attack on Twitter, which crashed the conversation right at the beginning. Of course, right? They need to make sure they insured at least one bad headline. If not for Trump, but definitely for Elon Musk, saying, "Oh, look, since he took over Twitter, it's a disaster. It doesn't even work, etc." So,
So I mean, it's up. It's running fine now. Please, not right now while our live show's on, but please head over there and give it a listen. I enjoyed it. I think, this is something I would like to see more And obviously I'm biased towards Trump, but I would like to see more candidates in this situation.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely, especially at least the main two ones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're seeing, RFK and the third party candidates do this sort of stuff, but they don't really have any chance to win. Before we get started, let's see. So Dark Sage 91117 says, have an interesting political question for both of you.
Shoot.
All right. So shoot at some point when we get back to it. Maybe we'll come back to it later and answer it. All right. So the first part, now bear with us here, folks. This is going to be a little bit difficult to kind of play. I don't have every part clipped. I just have the entire thing. And Captain and I wrote timestamps. So I'm going to have to fast forward and go to the timestamps, play, and then we'll comment on it.
We're real professionals, people.
Yeah, it was too much work, man, to clip every single part.
We had so much brain power this week.
Yeah, I only had so much brain power. Plus, I didn't know exactly how long you wanted me to roll on your clips.
It's fine.
Right. So let's start off with the first one. It's about immigration and references Kamala Harris.
Illegal immigration and especially unvetted illegal immigration, because and that's not the same as saying that everyone who is an illegal immigrant is bad. In fact, I think most people who are illegal immigrants are actually good, but you can't tell the difference unless there's a solid vetting of who comes across the border. Does that accurately represent your position?
I say it very simply. They have to come in legally. They have to be checked.
Yeah.
Because look.
All right, real quick. So first of all, I just thought that was interesting because Trump is made out to be a sort of closed borders person, racist, hates everyone, thinks all the migrants coming in are bad. Right there, he goes, no, 100%. He agrees with Elon Musk that they're not all bad people, and that there just needs to be checks and it needs to be done legally.
Yeah, I think Shane Gillis made the joke of, we have a big, beautiful wall, and I want to install a beautiful door for everybody to come through properly.
Yeah.
Kamala was the border czar. Now she's denying it. Everything that I do, she's saying she was strong on the border. We're going to be strong. Well, she doesn't have to say it. She could close it up right now. They could do things right now. It's horrible. No tax on tips, and all of a sudden she's making a speech and there will be no tax on tips. I said that months ago. And by the way, they had just the opposite. They had not only tax on tips, but they hired 88,000 IRS agents. And many of them were assigned to go get waitresses and caddies and all of this on tips. They have a policy. They had a policy that they were really going to go after you and were really harassing people horribly. And then all of a sudden, for politics, she says, she comes out with what I said, which I think is terrible. And I think it's also hitting them very hard. These people are fake. Now they're also saying they did a good job on the border. We had the worst numbers in the history of the world, not of our country. There's never been a country in history that has had a catastrophe like this. We've had, I believe, and I think you believe this too, you hear 12 million, 13. I believe it's over 20 million people came into our country.
Easily.
Many coming from jails, from prisons, from mental institutions, or a bigger version of that is insane asylums, and many are terrorists. And I'll tell you what, they're coming not just from South America, they're coming from Africa, they're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Asia, they're coming from the Middle East. They're coming from countries that are stupidly and horribly bombing Israel October 7th. They're coming from all over the world. And you look at, it's so sad, October 7th, because it should have.
It's funny to watching Trump in one of these open conversations, right? Because he's kind of all over the place on all sides of every, position.
He would do well on this podcast.
He would, yeah, definitely, with the way we go off topic. I was going to say that, going back to him talking about Harris, how she's done an awful job. I also go follow us on our social media, TikTok, Instagram, etc. I posted a video the other day of Kamala Harris giving, she was meeting with some group somewhere, and then I don't even know, wherever she was campaigning, and someone asked her a question if she's going to close the migrant detention facilities.
Yes.
She said, yes, on day one, I will be. So not only is Trump correct on this topic of that she is weak on the border, she was the border czar. They tried to cover up that she is the border czar. But the one position so far that I know she has, or she's stated that when she becomes president, is that she's going to close the migrant detention facilities. What are those things? Those are where people who are apprehended when they cross the border illegally are then sent and processed, arrested, then either deported or whatever happens.
Set free.
Point. So imagine that.
Yeah, an even weaker border. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
how's
the
it going to
goal.
look like without any of those? I mean, just open the door. Come on in, folks. Everyone.
So what? You know what? Maybe we should apply to work for like ICE. Because if Harris gets in, you'll just get paid. You don't have to do anything. He brought up a great point. I know nobody who is voting for Harris is probably listening. Maybe you are. But in the coming months, there's going to be a lot of debates, a lot of conversations that the citizens of Doom Nation are going to have with other members of society. And I want people to realize, do not let, put the Democrats, put these left-wing loons in their place. Do not let Kamala Harris hold your vote hostage to get things done. Hold her hostage to get things done. Listen, if you do this now while you are in office, I will vote for you to become president. I will not vote for you if we have to wait for you to become president for you to start doing work. You're in office now. Put the rubber to the road. Get some shit done. You could start your policy now. And if your policy is so much better than Trump's, let's roll it out. And I can promise you, you'll get more votes that way. Don't let her hold your vote hostage.
Yeah, it's a great point. There was that Babylon Bee meme this week that said, woman who's in charge right now says that if you vote for her later, she'll fix everything or something like that. Right, like she's the president right now. And if you want to even say that, she's not really the president, Joe Biden is. Yeah, they just cooed him out of the way. And he's half dead.
And
do you think he's going to do anything?
You've all admitted he's not fit to run the office. He's not fit to run for president. So you're on the Kamala Harris train. Hold her accountable. You want to hold Trump accountable? You want to say Trump's a racist because of X, Y, and Z? Fine. Make your own candidate work for you and do something. And I'm so glad that Trump was able to bring that out. And Doom Nation, the people that are listening, remember that. You don't need to argue and scream and fight with people who are voting in a different manner than you, but just bring this to their attention. She could do this now. There's no point in waiting.
It's a very simple point, a very good point. I think that should be stressed over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So Dark Sage commented, while we're in between topics here, he says, I'm curious how the media and politicians would react today if you had someone like Dwight Eisenhower come along and run for president. He is one of the few people you never hear the media go after or talk badly about, which I suspect is because of his war record. But if he was around today, what do you think the media, Democrats or Republicans, would try to do to slander him or make sure he could not win the presidency? He is one of my favorite presidents of all time, and I think he is underappreciated by all of us. If he was around today, I would vote for him in a heartbeat. 100% agree with you. I think if he was around today, he would be shot and killed because he was not only a military man, a badass American hero in a sense, like everybody knows the name Dwight Eisenhower, World War II, all that stuff, but he was right on a lot of the worst decisions. He didn't think bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki were the right thing to do. He had that great speech at the end of his presidency where he warned about the military-industrial complex. And this is at like the very beginning, kind of the inception of the military-industrial complex, right? So what would you think he would be doing today? Seeing what the military-industrial complex is, and
how he would feel about Ukraine and Israel right now,
and just the condition of the United States government in general. He'd be like the most radical person running for president, most likely.
Right-wing extremism.
Yeah, right. He would be demonized by the corporate press, if not assassinated, just because of how combative he might have been.
Yeah. But I mean, I think they would World War III, get the World War II president in there for World War III.
He'd be a good, he'd be a good leader of men on the field. Yeah. So good comment there, Dark Sage. I like that one.
Thank you, Dark Sage.
Yeah. All right, let's go over to the next topic. Unless you got anything else you want to comment on, Cap. This one was yours, I believe.
Yeah. What are we looking at?
120. Crime. It's easy to rob people in New York and California.
Yeah, his comment on how
correct. That is
there's no law and order.
Keen observation by you, probably Donald Trump. I don't remember this part. Let's see what he had to say.
I mean, what's happening with crime, and our police are so good, but they're not allowed to do their job. But I have to tell you, Elon, I hate to say it because it's such a downer to say it. I hate to say it. I hate it, but you have a lot of people that just shouldn't be. I think it's a much bigger number than you think. They're allowing,
I think you're
again,
right,
they're
yeah.
allowing people from their jails. And if you were running one of these countries where they're coming from, you would have had all of them. As an example, Venezuela, their crime is down 72%. They're taking their drug dealers, they're taking, frankly, their prisoners, they're emptying out their prisons. They're taking their criminals, their murderers, their rapists, and they're delivering them into
That's what Castro did.
yeah,
that.
well, he did on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
It was a much smaller scale. But this is a massive scale because this is being done worldwide. But here's what's happening. Crime all over the world is down. And wait till you see the numbers that we have. This is migrant crime. This is crime that's going to be.
Yeah.
And I saw it today in New York where somebody was knifed with raped the girlfriend of a man that stood there watching in New York in one of the shelters and started pulling out the knives, and bad things happened today. But this is happening every day. These are rough people. These are people that are in jail for murder and all sorts of things. And they're releasing them into our country. And they're telling them, if you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to give you the death penalty or kill you. So they don't want to come back. But these are rough people. These are criminals that make our criminals look like nice people. And it's horrible what they're doing. And she's in charge of it because, now she's trying to say she had nothing to do with it. And she's such a liar because she was called the border czar the first day, and it was on the headlines of every newspaper. She's the border czar, and she never even went there. She went to one location, which had nothing to do with where the problem is. She went in and out, I guess, because she was getting a lot of pressure, but had nothing to do with the problem is. But she was the border czar, and people can't allow them to get away with their disinformation campaign. Now she's trying to say that she wasn't really involved, and the whole thing is horrible.
It is a great point. She wasn't really involved. She's the literal fucking vice president of the United States of America. I'm not involved, though, in anything that has to do with being vice president or president.
It takes, this isn't a small scale. We're talking about becoming the president of the United States. You have been in the limelight solidly, for several years now, but you have been the main focus for the past 4 years. And things like Google and Twitter exist. Newspapers with headlines and stories exist. For you to say what is and isn't disinformation, and then to come out and say, I was never the border czar, after we clearly had probably even covered it on this very podcast that she was the border czar, it takes a level of brass balls unbeknownst to mankind to try and pull something like that off.
I think what that amounts to, also that whole fiasco, that was created by them, of themselves. They chose to put her in charge of that disaster of a situation. Why did they do that? Well, she was already very unpopular to begin with, and it's a very unpopular thing that they were allowing to happen. All right, put the unpopular person in charge of the thing that we're allowing to happen. That's unpopular. I don't think at the time, back 4 years ago, they envisioned that she would be the candidate at this point in time, right? So, they were kind of like burning her back then, not understanding that 4 years later she's going to be important. That's why they're trying to kind of erase the fact.
But come on, how can you erase this?
No, I know. Like idiots like us aren't that dumb, right? We remember, they're
the North remembers.
Yeah, the North remembers. Yeah, there was, the articles from like Axios, I think we showed on one of our last episodes, of them calling her or maybe the AP calling her the border czar, and then them running an article now saying she was never the border czar. Like even the same, like the corporate press was calling her the border czar, and now they're saying no, she was never called the border czar. That's where we're at, folks. I think those things are valuable pointing out, just the hypocrisy. Those are tiny red pills to feed people all the time. You have thoughts, Cap, on this part? I'm not sure how far you want to go on this one.
No, that was pretty good. I don't know what I was trying to get at. I should have took a little bit bigger notes on it.
It's okay.
But the next one's is border czar. Yeah.
The next one is mine. Honestly, in my opinion, this is probably the most interesting part I thought of the entire conversation. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you thought something else was more interesting. The concept of this next part is the idea that Trump and just the American president in general deters bad countries around the world from doing things that America doesn't like, because he's strong and the perception of strength around the world. That's the concept of this conversation. I thought this was very interesting, and I kind of disagree here on a couple of things, but let's listen and then we'll chime in after, unless there's anything else you want to say.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
So I have a pretty good comment. I think this is where he said something that really caught my attention.
A nice way, or we can do it the hard way.
Yeah, no, I mean, they just took him out back behind the shed and basically shot him.
What they did with this guy, and I'm no fan of his. He was a horrible president in history. And one of the reasons he was so bad, first of all, the Israeli attack would have never happened. Russia would never have attacked Ukraine, and we'd have no inflation. And we wouldn't have had the Afghanistan mess, if you think of it. And we wouldn't have had Afghanistan. But we think of it. You take a few of those events away, and we have a different world.
Yeah.
Inflation was caused by oil.
Yeah. No. I think you're making an excellent point here, which is that when other countries can, that are are thinking about invading or doing bad things, when they're thinking about that, they're thinking about, okay, what's the American president going to do, and do they fear the American president, or is there someone they do not respect and do not fear? And I think they would rightfully be. I mean, look at that.
Get it out, Elon.
Like, okay,
not a podcaster.
President Trump is like, don't mess with me. I mean, that's like, whereas I think people are not going to be, and they obviously have not been at all intimidated by Biden, and they certainly will not be intimidated by Kamala. And you have to really think of that in the context of global security. That if the American president is someone that, like, evil dictators are scared of, that makes a huge difference to the security of the world.
So I had a good relationship with Putin, despite the Russia hoax that lasted for over 2 years. Just a hoax created by Hillary Clinton and Adam Shifty Schiff, some just bad people, just sick people, frankly. I mean, Schiff is a sick person. He's going to end up probably being a senator. It's hard to believe. The whole thing is hard to believe. But, they put our country in danger with that stuff, too. They actually, when they make up stories, and you have to fight your way out of it for a long time. But I know Putin very well. I got along with him very well. He respected me, and it's just one of those things. And we would talk a lot about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye. But I said, don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. I shut down Nord Stream 2. That was the big oil pipeline, the biggest pipeline in the world, going all over Europe. I shut it down. Biden came, and then they say, I loved Russia. I was a friend of Putin, and I loved Russia. No, he actually said to me one time, he said, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you as an enemy. I shut down his pipeline, the biggest pipeline. They were looking at that to fund, and
There's an admission there by Trump that even during his administration, there were some provocations toward Russia. Given the history of the war right now, shutting down the Nord Stream pipeline was a provocation in a sense towards Russia, right? That was a stream of income for them.
Right.
And I think Trump's wrong here on this one. I think we've said it before, or at least I've said it before on this podcast, like, when goods cross borders, soldiers do not, right? So the fact that, like, Russia and Germany are dependent on each other for a good and service, oil and gas, that makes it less likely that they're going to go to war with each other, which they've gone to war with each other several times, and they've been the most destructive things that have ever happened to planet Earth and human society when Russia and Germany want to go to war. So I don't think this is necessarily a good point that, I shut down the pipeline. Now the pipeline got blown up, years later. Going back to just like the concept of Trump and the American president being like strong, and that's what deters like Putin from going into Ukraine, for example, or Hamas going into Israel. I'm not saying there's nothing to that, and maybe you're going to say I'm splitting hairs on this. I don't think that's what it is, right? Like, do you think that Putin doesn't fear the United States government's deep state CIA intelligence apparatus that is hell-bent on overthrowing and killing him? Or do you think the reason why a Putin and a Kim Jong-un doesn't do anything when Donald Trump is president is because Donald Trump is open to negotiation and having conversations with people, right? Same thing goes for Hamas. They've proven and the Palestinians over the years. When there is a negotiation on the table, they stop the violence, right?
Yeah.
So that could apply to any other bad guy, or maybe not every other bad guy, but some of the other bad guys.
I don't disagree, because the way you word it is pretty logical. I mean, the deep state would start a war at any moment if they had the availability to.
I'd say, like, I think they should be feared, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, and I'm pretty sure Vladimir Putin fears the United States deep state
Yeah.
overthrowing and killing him. So does Kim Jong-un. Like the hegemony, the world empire. These things are fucking aimed at those guys.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I don't think it's. They should be. If they're not afraid of them, that's a mistake on their part. I'm afraid of the fucking deep state in America, right?
I think with someone like Trump in office, they are more open to negotiations, and I think they are more fearful of, you got to think Trump's first time in office. I think it works with Trump. I don't think it works with legacy politicians, because when Trump came into office, they had no idea what this guy was going to do. And you listen to American media, day one, slavery's coming back and we're launching all the nukes, and you can't have purple hair no more. You know what I mean? So they're kind of like, oh shit, we gotta play cool. And Trump shows up and he's down to negotiate. So you are willing to be more friendly. And I think you're right in saying that when you're open to negotiate, peace will prevail. If you look at what's been going on in Ukraine, the Biden administration has struck down any peace talks. They've just continued the war. But
they haven't even entertained any conversation.
Right.
Biden and Putin have not spoken
Right.
this entire time. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That they have not spoken this entire time.
And I also think Biden exudes this weakness. He's a career politician. He's not a good one at that. He's always been known to be a fucking dummy. You know what I mean? So now these world leaders, even though the deep state's there, they might have a little bit more wiggle room, because at least Biden isn't going to be the one pressing the big nuke button. The deep state will, but Biden won't. Whereas Trump and the deep state might try and kill you if you screw him over.
Maybe they're viewing it as like, now they actually do have a president instead of just a puppet.
Yes, and also, they sit down, they meet with Trump. He's willing to work. He's willing to negotiate. He'll be difficult where he needs to be. It's a bit respectable, and it brings about peace, because they're not dealing with a deep state puppet. They're dealing with somebody who's trying to run a country now.
Right. That's my point, though. Yeah. That's probably why, again, I do think there is value in being the strong man and being like, hey, don't fuck with America.
I think there is value in it, yeah.
Of course there is. I'm not saying there's not. I'm giving Trump credit, perhaps, that he's not giving himself. Or maybe he's not branding himself this way, where I'm saying maybe he should brand himself this way, saying that, like, it's not just that I am strong and people will fear me because I will protect America, but I'm also level-headed and I'm willing to talk to our enemies and make peace and negotiate and things like that. And that's why it's not just that they're afraid of me, but they are willing to negotiate, and that's why they don't take acts of violence when I'm in charge, because I'm here. I'm literally speaking to them, sitting across the table with an outstretched hand, trying to, like, fix the problems of the past or something like that. Maybe Donald Trump should here's some advice to the Trump campaign. Maybe you guys should lead with one of those.
His new campaign team.
Yeah, if that's true. I don't know. I'm seeing a lot from our MAGA friends saying that that's all BS. Trump's going to be replacing his campaign team. So I don't know.
Yeah. But what was I going to say? Oh, well, is this also the part of Trump said something where, any smart president would know how to deal with these people. It's the people within our country that are even more dangerous than these evil dictators.
He might have said something like that. I don't know if he did in this interview, but he might have said something like
that. He said it in the interview with Elon at least twice, where he's like, I don't want to name them, but he's like, there's more dangerous people in Congress than there are running other countries and stuff.
Lindsey Graham, for one of his buddies.
Oh, yeah.
I don't disagree with that at all. Like, especially towards the American people, like me and you. What's more of a threat to me and you, Vladimir Putin or
Adam Schiff,
the deep state in Washington D.C., who can, like, touch us? Vladimir Putin can't really do anything to us right this moment in time unless he launches all the nukes. Then we're all fucked anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a good point, man. I thought this was probably the most, like, philosophical, interesting part of the conversation. Definitely, like, the strong president. Again, maybe I'm splitting hairs. I'm just trying to give advice. Maybe lead with I'm the peace.
And also the funny
I'm the
part,
strong guy who will kill you if you try and touch us.
Also, the funny part is the media the entire time was the opposite on this. Oh, with Biden in office, we're going to be so much better off. Nope, we weren't even close, pal.
Right, exactly. Okay, the next part is one of yours, I believe.
No way.
No way. When
I got
read that, I was like, the fuck is Captain
you might have
about?
to go back a little bit before the start, so I know what they're
wrote down 136. I'm at 135.56. Let's see.
All right.
I listened to it just because I didn't know what the fuck you meant when you put no way on there.
That just made me laugh.
Vladimir Putin, I say, don't do it. You can't do it, Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day. You cannot do it. And I told him things that what I do, and he said, no way. And I said, way. And it's the last time we ever had the conversation.
You can pause it right there. This was in reference to Russia advancing on Ukraine's territory. And Trump threatened him and said, I'll do A, B, and C. And Vladimir said, no way. And Trump said, way. I found it funny. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
High school girl, mean girls conversation.
Shortly after that, the deal was struck that NATO would not move forward on Ukraine. It was understood under the Trump administration that this is going to cause problems if NATO advances into Ukraine and Ukraine's not going to join them. And then Biden got into office and just reversed everything Trump did and straight up caused this.
Mm-hmm.
First, not only is this a proxy war that we're funding it, but this administration caused it.
Yeah.
Spitefully caused it.
I think I missed this, writing this down. I don't remember exactly where it is, but I'm pretty sure in this, Trump made a damn good point that like any good libertarian would have made, saying that when Biden and Harris first got into office, one of the very first things they did was send Kamala over to some NATO meeting where she said in public on camera to everyone that Ukraine will join NATO. This is like right at the beginning, before the Ukraine war started, right as soon as Biden and Harris took office.
They did that out
Kamala
of spite.
Harris, by the way, who's running for president right now. She's the one who said, that 100% Ukraine will join NATO. That was kind of like the final provocation for Vladimir Putin to them. Like, okay, now I have to flip the chess table over.
And they're all shocked now that Vladimir Putin wants war. When for the entire 4 years beforehand, it was understood if A happens, B happens. Harris shows up. Yeah, we're gonna have a B happen right now. Let's go. Just insanity.
Yeah,
mind numbing.
Using that point again. Let's think from Vladimir Putin's point of view. He hears that. Mm-hmm. Right? Don't you think? Again, coming from the point,
it's a threat.
Are they? Are they fearful of the deep state Biden-Harris regime? I'd say yes. Yes, he is. He made the decision to literally go to war because he knew, okay, they're signaling they're coming after me. They're moving into Ukraine. I'm next after that. NATO, the weapons, the dual use nukes, all this shit. And he said, I have to do something. I have to break something now because they haven't listened to me for all these years. Trump was a little bit better, but now the worst people are in charge, and they're saying they're coming after me in a sense. So in a sense, that tells me that, yes, he's, again, like I view it as he's afraid in some sense. Vladimir Putin's not going to sell it that way, but he's making a decision based on he's in jeopardy. He's scared of losing his position, his government, their whole scheme they have with the Russian oligarchy. So good point there by Trump. I'll say that was well done.
Way.
No way. Yeah, like I said, it's like a Mean Girls conversation. All right, the next part is, this was I probably thought was the second most interesting part, the nuclear weapon stuff and the nuclear warming part. Let's see if we got the timestamp right. Let's go.
Well, here we have a modern day axis of evil. These are powerful countries, very heavy nuclear, which is the biggest threat. Yeah. The biggest threat is not global warming, where the ocean's going to rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 400 years.
And make more beachfront property.
Or oceanfront property, right? The biggest threat is not that. The biggest threat is nuclear warming, because we have 5 countries now that.
So I've made that point before on this podcast where, I don't know, years ago, we were talking about Greta Thunberg or AOC and climate change and how these people support the war in Ukraine. And I've made the point like, hey, if you're worried about climate change, like the most instant real climate change would be every country in the world launching their nukes.
Yeah.
It would change the surface of the planet, radioactive, nuclear winter. There'd be so much dust in the atmosphere that the sun would be blocked out. Plant life would fucking die. We'd be screwed. Like, good chance almost all life would probably go extinct. Definitely humans, who we need tremendous amount of calories to survive. Our society would be fucked, if not anything. So this is a great point. I am glad Donald Trump was on this in this open conversation, making nuanced points that sound like me sometimes.
Could you imagine if in the middle of a CNN town hall, they started talking to him about climate change, and he was like, "I'm not worried about climate change. I'm worried about nuclear warming." The collective gasp of disgust that would hail the nation in that moment.
They'd make it like as if he's an idiot, that he didn't like he said something that doesn't make any sense, when it absolutely makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah.
Nuclear war is climate change, the instant and the worst version of it. Let's keep going, because I think it was a little bit more interesting stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Have significant nuclear power, and we have to not allow anything to happen with stupid people like Biden. Biden did something with Russia. There was no chance of him ever going in. And when I left, and then after I left, they started forming big armies on the border with Ukraine, right? And I looked at that, and I thought he was doing that because Putin's a good negotiator. I thought he was doing that to negotiate. But then Biden started saying such stupid things. For instance, he said that it can be a NATO country. Now, Russia, for as long as there's been NATO, has said we're never going to agree to that. And we go right up front and say that. And we did things and said things through this president with a low IQ, very low IQ. He had a low IQ 30 years ago, by the way, but now he might not even have a IQ at all. There's nothing on the board that goes this low. He said things that were so stupid that war would have been, that war had zero chance of happening if I were there. Zero chance. He was saying everything the opposite. Everything the opposite. And it's so sad, because many more people have been killed in Ukraine than you read about. You don't read about how.
All right, that's exactly what we were talking about before, that he did reference that. So there you go. You have it. He actually could have really hammered Kamala Harris there, because it was Biden sent her to go and say that on the cameras. And Biden said it too. But all good points around, man. What do you think? What else you want to?
No, I think it's a great point. It's getting to such a point, something we've hammered into this podcast since episode 1 is piss poor policies. And we have gotten to a point where the policies are so bad, we are on the verge of nuclear world war. Yeah. Like, how much worse can it really get? I mean, the only way it could get worse is to start dropping the bombs.
Yeah.
Full out World War III. Yeah. And then it doesn't matter. But this is where piss poor policies and stupid, corrupt people that are in charge, was it, I'm not going to keep referring to the deep state, even though Biden's a puppet, but solely out of spite, Biden got into office and just did whatever he could to be the opposite of Donald Trump, and at the expense and lives of all those Ukrainian men. And all you voted for Biden, and you put a blue and yellow bumper sticker on the back of your car, and you think you did something, but you literally supported the man who slaughtered hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians.
Yeah. And perhaps has put the existence of our species
at stake.
Right. So this was one of definitely the most interesting parts of the whole conversation, this whole nuclear thing.
Yeah.
Let's check in on how the corporate press covered it, because there was a part where we're not going to play that part, but I think it's in this video, where Elon and Trump were talking about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the bombings and all the stuff. And they had good nuanced takes on all that stuff. Let's see how, now that we're on the topic of nuclear, let's see how CNN framed it.
I want to play one exchange that was kind of classic. Well, there were a lot of exchanges that were classic Donald Trump, but this one really stuck out to us.
And Nagasaki were bombed, but now they're like full cities again. So it's really not something that, so it's not as scary as people think, basically.
So that was more Elon Musk than Donald Trump, talking about, sort of suggesting that what happened almost 80 years ago, I think 80 years ago next year, the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now it's okay. Kind of trying to blow off the impact of that.
Oh man, so they're saying that Trump said that it's great. It's great that Hiroshima and Nagasaki got bombed. If you actually listen back to the conversation,
instead of the 3 lines that they aired,
right? They're talking about nuclear energy and how nuclear energy is great. It's a great source, especially when it comes to climate change. If you're worried about climate change, you should be talking about nuclear energy. They're both talking about this. They're both admitting this. And they were talking about the sometimes perceived danger behind nuclear power plants, like melting down. They both spoke about Chernobyl and Fukushima in Japan. And Elon Musk was saying, well, the thing is that it's actually not as dangerous as people think it is. Like both of those regions are actually now pretty safe years later.
Yeah, this idea of like a 3,000 years darkness is just not real.
Exactly what they were saying. And that in Fukushima, like right now, the levels are okay. Like everything's fine. And Elon Musk was going on to say, like, we could build super safe nuclear power centers now that, won't be any risk at all. And when they were talking about the fact that, that it's not going to be like 3,000 years of, irradiated land if there's a meltdown or something in a nuclear power plant, Donald Trump, they referenced how the 2 bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Those are full cities again. People live there. They're not dying of radiation because it's been a long enough time for those things to subside. And Donald Trump says, yes, that's great. Yes, it's great that Hiroshima and Nagasaki
were able to bounce back.
Bounce back after being nuked. Right, that was a crime. And nowhere did he say that it was good that they got nuked. Right, but they just made that up. That as if he said that.
Well, it's just like the headline for when Trump said no more taxes on tip. Oh, it's going to cost the government $250 billion. And then Kamala said, I'm not going to tax you on tips either. Oh, this lady, she's a goddess. I can't believe she's so smart. Where did she ever come up with such a great idea?
Yep. These people are literally just there. They exist at the behest of the regime. They're part of the regime, quite literally.
What do we got next? Education?
Move on from the nuclear stuff. No, not yet.
Oh, the Government Efficiency Commission. I think so. This, a little prelude was this isn't one of Trump's policies. This was something that Elon suggested. And I mean, there's no way right now, currently, would we be able to trust a efficiency commission? It would be corrupt in seconds. But I think, I'm not one for expanding the government and starting commissions or anything like this. But I do think this is a genuine good idea, or maybe a good place to start, because government spending is wildly out of control and the Fed needs to be destroyed.
You're here. As long as they're talking about some sort of restraint on government, I'm all for it at this point, because they usually never do.
Spending. Would you agree that we need to take a look at government spending and have perhaps a government efficiency commission that just tries to make the spending sensible and so the country lives within its means, just like a person.
The waste is incredible, and it's nobody negotiates prices. You used to have a lot of people making jets, and you end up with 2 companies, and they'll probably try and merge at some point. I went through it, like Air Force, just a thing like Air Force One. One of the first documents they asked me to sign, a general said, "Sir, would you please sign this document?" And what is it? Air Force One. That's with Boeing, which is basically 2 planes, 2 747s. And the price was $5.7 billion for 2 planes. Now, now they're highly sophisticated.
That's insane.
They're even nicer than your plane, okay? But much more sophisticated. They're I won't say what's on it, but they got a lot of stuff on it. Anyway, but it's 5.7.
That's a crazy
number. It's a crazy number. But I said, I'm not going to pay 5.7. I'm not going to do it. I said, who made the deal? Obama and his people. I said, well, then.
I just like how simple Trump's negotiating. I ain't paying that much money. Like you're about to buy, like we're in Montauk, we're about to pay $20 for a beer. I ain't paying $20 for a beer. I ain't paying $5.7 billion for Air Force One. That's what he's telling Boeing. It's pretty funny.
I know the deal's no good. I'm not going to do it. And over a course of about 4 weeks, by my saying I'm not going to do it, I got the price reduced by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane, other than we had a nicer paint job, if you want to know the truth. But for the exact same plane, I saved one. And I said to Boeing, man, you guys must make a lot of money if you can reduce the price by that. But now what I do hear is that they're going back to the Biden administration and wanting big cost overruns, because they see these dopey suckers in there, and they'll end up getting some of the money back. But I shaved it by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane. And you can now take that and multiply that out times thousands of other items.
Multiply it by
the
zillion,
numbers are astronomical. I agree with you.
And so, yeah, we could cut it off here. I think this is a great idea. I mean, if it would actually happen, this is a reason why DC hates Trump so much, because he negotiates. He upsets the apple cart. Everybody's getting their cut, and that's why 2 planes cost $5.6 billion, and no one bats an eye at it. And that's just the cost. Gee shucks whiz. I wonder what else we could do. Because they always talk about a single missile on a fighter jet is, $35 million. No, the fuck it's not.
Yeah.
There's not even enough material, labor, and scientific R&D research that went into that single bomb that explodes. Ancient China had bombs that exploded. Okay,
yeah,
for 3 yen back then. Okay,
3 yen. Yeah, well, you're right. Like they use a lot of yen to buy like a stick of bubble gum now.
Yeah,
Captain Inflation has his yen numbers correct.
So I mean, there's no way this little rocket that goes on this plane costs $35 million, and we shoot 8 dozen of them at once. So I think this is a great idea of a way to save money. And look, he saved $1.6 billion, right? We give Ukraine $1.6 billion anytime they pick up the phone.
Yeah, like that's not a lot. He saved, it's a lot, but in terms of the government spending, it's not a lot. Trump made the point that if you multiply that out on every item or a lot of items, which you actually would need some sort of council to help figure those things out, because there's so many things happening with government. You could cut back on a lot of the spending. Going back to what we were saying before, I'm sure you've seen Independence Day, the old one in the 90s. There was that great part where they're brought into Jeff Goldblum's character and his dad are brought into the Area 51.
Yeah, where they have the alien.
Where they have the alien and they have the ship. And Jeff Goldblum's like, man, how do they afford all these things? And his dad's like, what do you think? When they spend $50,000 on a hammer, that's what they're actually spending on it? I laughed at that part, but that was such a good point. It's like, yes, of course. No, a hammer doesn't cost $50,000. It costs $5, right? But they're charging $50,000, laundering the money, putting money back in other people's pockets, and then they can actually fund
it's a big slush fund.
Yeah, they could fund under the table projects like, let's say, Area 51 in the Independence Day movie. It's a joke, it's a movie, right? But that's exactly how it probably works in real life.
I always said, you're in the Bronx, you get a speeding ticket. Where does that money go? Oh, back into the infrastructure of the Bronx.
Get the fuck out of here, right?
They got cameras. They got cameras on every corner in the Bronx. You could drive 3 blocks and rack up $100 in 2 minutes.
Go and watch our video at Trump's rally in the Bronx. At the very beginning, I reference how the grass is not cut at the train station near my dad's house in the Bronx. And that, I think I might have mentioned it on the podcast, but I think maybe 4 out of the 5 weekends around that time, I had gone down there to the Bronx, and the grass wasn't cut. The grass was fucking taller than me. So yes, like you're saying, right? Like they're not even cutting the grass.
Yeah.
They're raking in bajillions of dollars on all those tickets and things in New York City. Yeah. All right. Anything else on government efficiency, Cap? I got to hand it to Trump, man. He was good on this one. Yeah. Very libertarian-like. I think there's a little bit of irony because he spent a lot of money when he was president.
Yeah,
but he did. I'll give him a pass because he's talking actually, which he usually never talks about, saving money and trying to rein in some spending. So good for him. Some good nuance there coming out of it. Let's move on to what I think is our last one. Is it? Let's double check.
Yeah, I mean it could be
second to last. Yeah, we're running up on time here. I think this is Trump's best position in mind, at least towards
if I had this is education. Yeah.
Yep.
If I had kids and I was a single issue voter, Trump would have my vote.
Yep.
100%. And I don't have kids yet, and I still wholeheartedly believe he is correct.
Okay, so I have a range here from 153 to 155. I don't remember exactly when it is, so let's play and listen.
Something people should bear in mind. Don't take prosperity for granted.
Well, think of education. So we're ranked at the bottom of every list of the top 40. We're ranked number 40, number 38. Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, different countries are ranked good. Actually, China's pretty close to the top. They're a top
Shocking.
6 or 7, but we're ranked at the bottom, almost at the bottom, 38, 39, 40. In other words, horrible. And yet we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world. So we spend more. And what I'm going to do, one of the first acts, and this is where I need an Elon Musk. I need somebody that has a lot of strength and courage and smarts. I want to close up Department of Education, move education back to the states, where states like Iowa, where states like Idaho, not every state will do great because states that basically aren't doing good now. You look at Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He's terrible. He does a terrible job. So he's not going to do great with education. But of the 50, I would bet that 35 would do great. And 15 of them, or 20 of them, will be as good as Norway. Norway is considered great. You can name them. I mean, they're so good. Some of these countries are so good. But if you go into some of these really well-run states, we have states that don't know what debt is. We have states that have low taxes, no debt.
Tennessee.
Everybody working. They're really well-run. Sure. And maybe they have certain advantages in terms of location, in terms of, the land or the sun and the water and the whole thing. There are a lot of advantages that some people have. But if you moved education back to the 50, you'll have some that won't do well. But they'll actually be forced to do better because it'll be a pretty bad situation. But if you think about it, you'll have some of these states. I'll bet you'd have 30, 35 states. It'll be much better. And you know what it'll cost? Less than half what it is in Washington. And these people don't care about the students.
He must be being counseled by a libertarian. I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, that's exactly the libertarian, position on the federal government, the Board of Education. He's literally saying, free market competition, right? Like if you get the federal government out of schools and it goes back to the states, then the states have to compete. Public schools have to, they don't have a blank check that they could just whatever. It doesn't matter how bad our results are. We just keep getting funded forever. They'll then have to compete against private school, right? And let's see then how, if they don't start doing better or start like being a little bit more motivated, if you put some pressure on the teachers unions, to start like producing a little bit better.
Maybe they wouldn't worry about, kindergartners' pronouns and teach them how to count and read.
Right. So in my opinion, dude, of all Trump's opinions, I disagree with some. I think he has some really good ones. To me, this is his best position. School choice, get rid of the Department of Education. He is spot on correct. He understands it. He sounds, like I said, he sounds like Dave Smith or something like that on this topic. So this is my favorite position of Trump's.
And I love the fact that he brought out some states will not do good. A state like California is not going to do good because they solely run on progressive piss poor policy. And you're just going to show everybody in your state that has a child in school that your policy is no good. So it's either time to change and do the right thing or just utterly lose. And I'm in favor. My whole idea is to bring everything back to the 50 states. I don't want the federal government to have any type of power. Let every state run itself, and then we will see what policy is good policy and which one's bad policy.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't even stay in Connecticut. It would probably be so good in Tennessee or Florida or something, or Texas, that we'd have to move down there.
Competition will make things better.
Yeah.
If we could decentralize power back to the states. It's not perfect. It's not anarchism, right? But it's much better than a strong central federal government dictating every aspect of your life. It will introduce some more competition like Trump's talking about here, and it will make some better results. It will put pressure on certain schools, certain states to do better, and they'll change their tune. Why? Because a lot of them are not living in reality. They have the magic money printer, which is funding their terrible policies and decisions forever, and they could just keep doing terrible policies forever. Like ideologically driven policies that aren't real life. The progressive shit that you're referencing, right? They won't be able to do that anymore.
No,
right?
They won't have time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more. The Federal Reserve has to go as well. The fact that we're just removing a tumor, not the cancer, in a sense, is a problem here as well. But that's a great position. Kudos to Trump on that one. Any other thoughts for me? There's one more. I don't know if you want to get to it. Vilify oil and gas industry, or want to go on tweets so we can wrap it up.
It's your choice. I mean, we're running low. We're at an hour. We could do tweets of the week, but I just like the idea that the whole idea of, you know, the Green New Deal and global warming and stuff, that we're nowhere near this Al Gore 12 years until the world ends bullshit.
It's 20-something years ago.
Yeah, it's been debunked over 2.5 decades now. You know, we could eat our steaks. Cows can fart. Farmers can farm. We have 100 to hundreds of years before any of this becomes a serious problem. And no, we're not trying to kick the can down the road, but like Elon put it the best. He said, what the oil industry is keeping society alive, and we can't wait to kill it. To me, that's Agenda 2030? You will own nothing and be happy. Yeah, because we destroyed the oil industries. There's no way to keep society alive. Everything's electric. There's rolling blackouts. Of course you have nothing. You live in a pod. You hope you have power and hot water that night, and you go and you know, like Black Mirror, you cycle your bike to create energy, and you go home.
Yeah, the best way for human society to tackle any problem is by human society being rich and educated. And if we cut off our primary source of energy, we are going back to the dark age. Everyone will be poorer. They'll be starving. They'll be ignorant because they don't have time to go to school and learn. And yes, there will be pollution. That's not good. We don't like pollution. I love hunting and conservation and nature and whatever, right? But if we lean into the free market, right, we will produce better methods of making energy. And if we do get to a point where it is clearly, you know, proven without a shadow of a doubt, everyone can understand it, everyone can see it, that it's a problem, that something's wrong with the climate, well, there will be a demand to fix it. The market will figure it out, supply and demand, right? The demand will be, we don't want to go extinct, right? And we'll create a new, you know.
And I'm sure if we went over to a free market and got away from this idea of everything needs to be electric, and we start, you know, my time working in the automotive industry, electric cars are the future, but they're not the future of right now. Hybrid cars are insanely efficient. They're just as, you know, when hybrid cars first came out, they kind of sucked. You didn't get any of the luxury items. You didn't get the sports rims or the sports package. They weren't as fast. They didn't have as much horsepower. The only real sell on them was you got like 35 miles to the gallon. But here we are a few years later. You get like 35 miles to the gallon. You get the black rims, the sports package, the luxury package.
Probably by now.
Oh, probably. Like, I'm just,
60, 70 by now.
Yeah, I'm just guesstimating. And that is our direct future for the automotive industry. And if we just move away from this harsh Green New Deal idea and look for other alternatives, and, you know, you're talking about the free market, I'm sure you know, pollution and climate change would slowly decrease because we're not, you know, rushing to this overpowered electrical grid that's going to crap out every single day.
Yeah. I give you one last good example of that. In Germany, they are making it very difficult. Well, first of all, the war and all these things, but they make it very difficult to get like gas and oil. They're trying to like roll back on how much gas and oil are used because of climate change. So what are people going to do in Germany? It's really fucking cold in the winter. Chop down trees, burn them in a wood burning stove. Way more dirty than burning coal or oil. You're burning wood. Wood is fucking super smoky and you know, polluting compared to oil. It's not, you know, it's a market difference. So like if you make people poorer,
and you're destroying the wilderness,
the wilderness, right? But yes, if you actually make people poorer, they will end up polluting more. Because like you don't have time to worry about the environment. And this I'm freezing to death. I need to fucking warm myself up so I don't die.
Yeah. Trump had mentioned too that he likes solar energy, and that he's surprised Elon hasn't put like a solar power on a car. And I mean, that's it. That's the government's worst fucking nightmare right there. Like, you have perpetual energy. I don't need gas anymore. As long as it's sunny tomorrow, I'm going to go another 500 miles.
Yeah. In time. They're not there yet, but they will get there. That's the point. Lean into the free market and anything is possible.
Yeah.
All right. So the last point I wanted to make about the whole thing, Cap, which me and you discussed at the very beginning, is, my God, this is stark in contrast compared to Kamala Harris, who, it's now been 25 days, has not done one interview or one press conference. She's done nothing but like campaign speeches and canned remarks, in a sense. There's been nothing combative, honest, or open from her this entire time. She's been you thought Biden was like controlled and curated.
Yeah.
Harris has been way more controlled and curated than Biden has, since being installed. And I think it's because she was installed, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to like run out the clock here at the very beginning, so people forget that they basically cooed Joe Biden.
Yep.
And let's wait a couple weeks, and then people will forget. The news cycle, some crazy shit would happen. The news cycle will turn over, and people will not ask her that question.
Yeah.
She finally did, because eventually she's going to have to answer a question at some point.
Right?
I
wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they never ask her a question.
They'll have run out the clock. So it's stark in contrast, man. I would give Donald Trump credit for doing stuff like this.
I enjoy it. I mean, I know I have my bias, but I enjoyed it. We got to hear policy, and I mean, just let Trump like talk. Like these interviews that he has there, they're so just on the attack and the defense. We get it. It's been 10 years. You hate the guy. Let's just see what he has to say. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's the game. If they gave him the space to have an honest, open conversation, I bet you a lot more people would like what he has to say.
Yeah, I'm sure
the fact that they get into these like pissing matches with him and throwing fake things that he's then constantly having to like parry off to explain himself and how he didn't say he wasn't. There were
very fine people
or whatever, or Russia and stuff like that. You never get to this part of things. So kudos to Elon Musk as well. He's not perfect either, but creating a space where this can it's called Spaces, right? Creating a space where this can happen.
He did
shadow ban my account, man. My fucking account on Twitter is so shadow banned. I can't get any engagement.
He did invite Kamala to come on.
He did.
Let's see.
That's actually
let's see.
Tweets of the week. That's one of my tweets, actually. Spoiler warning.
I think I only got one.
Yeah. All right.
It was a topic I would have enjoyed talking about. I guess we could do it next week.
It's all good. Yeah, that's my first tweet. Happy to host Kamala on next Spaces too. I'll be honest with you, that'd be fucking fascinating.
Yeah,
I'd love to see a conversation between Kamala Harris and Elon Musk. I have no idea how that would go. I'd assume he'd be fair, right? And
I think he would, but I don't think she could handle it.
It's not going to happen, though. You understand that, right? Like, there's no way. She's like the Antichrist compared to what Trump just did, the opposite. There's no way she could have a 2-hour open dialogue conversation and not come out of there looking horrible. Where Trump comes out of this, if you actually did listen to it, and you don't believe any of the bullshit propaganda in the news, it was pretty good, honestly. Like, even in my book, who I'm a very sharp critic of Donald Trump, his stock price has risen for me, at least a little bit in my eyes. Kamala Harris, my God, she won't do it because she'd look awful.
Let's see if let's see if she accepts the debates.
Right? Yeah. What did they? Yeah. The talking point was that Donald Trump backed out of the debate originally.
Yeah. And he made the right move because he was the one who won the first debate. He won the debate by so far that they had to lead a coup against Joe Biden to get him out. So why should he agree to the old terms that he agreed to against Joe Biden? New terms for a new candidate.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Let's go over to. Do you have any videos?
No. It's just it's a picture. So this has been, I have been loving this. It's from Being Libertarian. What a timeline. It's a picture of two men wrestling. And it just so happens that the guy on the bottom, the guy on top, his dick is in the face of the guy on the bottom. And it says me, and then the dick is memes, and then the face is the British government. Because, boy, when that police chief said he was going to extradite Americans for their tweets, boy, what did Brad Pitt say in Inglourious Bastards? Well, we're just tickled pink to hear you say that. Because, I mean, nobody hates England more than me. Okay? You told me that we haven't been making money. They kind of flipped the switch on us. Fuck the Queen, fuck the King, fuck the royal family, fuck Prince Harry and his stupid bitch wife. Come over here. Let us teach you another lesson. I beg you.
I want to run this thing back. Let's see. Yeah. Let's see who wins again.
I beg you. Because if it wasn't for us, you'd be talking German. Go fuck yourself.
There was another great meme. I didn't pick it, but it was of the Hound in Game of Thrones. It's the chicken meme. No, it's the chicken meme, and it's the guy, and he's got the UK flag on his head. He's like, "You're really gonna die over some memes?" And then it's the Hound. And he's like, "Someone is." Yeah, man. So if you don't even know what we're talking about, one of the many things that's happened while we've been gone is the UK has gone off the deep end. There's been some riots there, anti-immigrant sentiment boiling over, fueled up there by this guy Tommy Robinson and whatnot. And there's been some riots and violence targeting immigrants there. So man, the government and the police have cracked down hard on freedom of speech on social media. And like, if you've said anything critical or somewhat threatening towards immigrants, like they're throwing you in prison for things you say on social media. And what Captain's saying, there was like one of the police chiefs over there says like, we'll apply this to Americans too. And we'll extradite you guys for posting memes that are like inflammatory towards the immigrant thing there, which we're like, get the fuck, you know what I'm saying? Like, get out of here. Yeah, you're going to extradite Americans for expressing our right to freedom of speech across the pond. Good luck with that, buddy.
Yeah. Send one of your police officers over here in their Allegro fucking Volkswagen and no pistols on their hip. We'll teach them real quick. Yeah. We don't even need to send the military to England. We could send good old boys from Georgia and Alabama and turn that place upside down. What we did
the first time. You come over here. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Send the Hessians or whatever.
We'll meet you in Boston, pal.
Turn them into mincemeat again. All right. So bear with me here. This is an interesting one. It was pretty long. It's by Matt Walsh. Are you familiar, Cap, with the North Sentinelese tribe, that island of like primitive people near India?
Oh, wait. Is this the island where they're all headhunting cannibals and like people aren't allowed to go there or something like that?
I don't know if they're headhunting cannibals, but it's an island of like literally Stone Age primitive people who shoot you with arrows if you could step foot on there.
I've heard of it. I'm not obviously an expert by any means.
So Matt Walsh is talking about this and spinning it into kind of like our modern day conversation between leftists and some of their unrealistic opinions and perceptions of society. So Matt Walsh says the more important point is that the primitive tribesmen on North Sentinel Island will viciously murder anyone who comes near their island, including totally innocent people who get stranded and wash up on their shore. Everyone accepts them butchering all intruders on sight because it's their culture and their custom. And yet, those same people will claim it's immoral for us to guard our own borders if we actually shot and killed intruders, even drug traffickers and human traffickers. They would screech about human rights violations and demand that everyone involved face justice. The only way to justify this double standard is to say that the Sentinelese are savages and inferior to us and cannot be expected to behave like civilized human beings. But nobody is willing to say that. So then how do we justify it? Why isn't the island raided and all of the murderers who inhabit it brought up on charges? What makes it okay for them to commit murder if it's not okay for me? Thought that was a great fucking point.
Very well put.
Pointing out like the hypocrisy of some leftists around like protecting your country, yourself, your person. It's okay.
Your home,
Again, they won't
lay down and die.
They won't say that these people are savages. They're basically making a special carve out for them because they do see them as inferior folk. And that's why they're allowed to commit acts of violence against anybody who comes there. Now, I'm the type of person, I think they should just kind of be left alone, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Works for them.
Shocking.
Works for them, But and I think that they do have a right to protect themselves. If they don't want modern humans stepping foot on their island and, changing their way of society, okay.
If I had a chance to be on an island and not let modern man on, I think I'd take him up on that offer.
Yeah. All right, my last tweet is by Tristan Tate, and he says, Israel versus Iran won't start World War III if we just let the Israelis fight the Iranians. This I'll get my big, strong friend in if I start losing attitude on both sides is what's going to cause the end of humanity. Just let them fight it out. Yeah.
That's basically my stance on any war. Let Ukraine fight Russia. Let Israel fight Hamas. Let Israel fight Iran. We don't need to be part of it.
Yeah, like the escalation comes from involving
us joining.
Like it's like a bar fight, right? Yeah. And like, you a little or me, a little guy gets into an argument with some huge dude, and I know I got you and the Legion of Doom behind me. They're not there. They're not like right there. And I'm talking shit to this guy, and I know this guy's gonna fuck me up if I fight him, right? But I know I got you guys behind me, and I keep talking shit. And before you know it, he tries to take a punch at me. I call on the Legion of Doom. You guys back me up. But then that guy's got like 40 guys outside as well.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, the whole bar is in a bar fight, and a bunch of people get killed. Maybe if you didn't have a bunch of people backing you up on both sides, the thing wouldn't have got out of control to that level. So great point by Tristan Tate. With that, sign us off, Cap.
All right, Doom Nation, it's been another episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's podcast. I know we did. Make sure you head over to Twitter or X and go check out Elon and Trump's conversation.
Follow me on there too, please, for the love of God. I am buried in zero engagement. I'm shouting into the wind. There is nothing I can do to be seen on Twitter.
Yeah, the powers that be have amped up the shadow ban on us because they are afraid we are going to speak the truth before the election.
Yeah,
so,
there was actually there was the AI on Twitter, Grok. I found a way. Someone posted a way where you could have it analyze your account, and I did it to mine. And holy shit, I am shadow banned for like being aggressive and confrontational and things like that. Like it states in there why you're shadow banned. Like it gives you lines of code and what the code means and everything.
That's
so
amazing.
I mean, freedom of speech, right? Elon Musk, I do thank you for what you've done, but it's not perfect yet.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. So on that note, Doom Nation, thank you. As always, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We will be back next week. Any final words?
Adios.
Peace out, everybody.